chance won't come again. And don't speak too soon, for the wheel's still in spin. There's no telling who let its name. For the loser now.
While at the protests at the Wisconsin State Capitol this past winter, I couldn't help but notice a surprisingly high number of Bob Dylan songs being played and lyrics used in protest signs. These interactions kept making me think, what connection do people today have with this soon-to-be 70-year-old musician? And why are people still singing songs like The Times They Are A-Changin'? I decided to take these questions to a handful of Madison professors, students, and musicians. I started out by asking everyone about their first experiences with Bob Dylan.
I must have heard Blowin' in the Wind in 1963, something like that would be my guess. Dylan wasn't on TV, but some of his songs were at that time. So I probably saw Peter, Paul, and Mary or somebody like that doing Dylan songs. I was aware of folk music, and I was aware of Dylan as a part of that folk music scene. But at the time that Dylan started recording and releasing stuff, I was still not 10 years old.
Okay.
So I was a little bit young to have registered the music. It would certainly have been Blowin' in the Wind, The Times They Are A-Changin'. Well, I can remember seeing Dylan albums at record stores, and 45 RPMs used to come with jackets that had pictures of the singers on them. And I can remember Mr. Tambourine Man, when the Byrds recorded Mr. Tambourine Man. I think it was the first time that they actually went out and got a Dylan album. I saw that a bunch of the songs on the Mr. Tambourine Man album had been recorded by the Byrds, and I believe it was Freewheelin' Bob Dylan at that point. So I had kind of the classic shot of Dylan and Susie Rodolo walking down the cold winter streets of New York.
The classic.
And absolutely. And did exactly what it was supposed to do. It established a mystique in my mind. So I had this notion of Dylan as somebody who was just kind of serious and cool and talking about real stuff.
Well, the first time I heard of Bob Dylan or his music was 1962. And it was early in his career, and I gotta say, as a kid that grew up in inner city Philadelphia, we moved to Pittsburgh for a few years later, but growing up in Philadelphia with American Bandstand, my brother singing in doo-wop groups himself. He's 5.5 years older than I am. So this whole notion of that sound was not, folk music wasn't part, and that's what Dylan was then. This was, his early stuff, bringing it all back home. And so I listened to it and I said, what is that? I mean, it's folk music, and the reaction was, if it wasn't good R&B, if it wasn't soulful, if I couldn't dance to it, it wasn't that good. So it was kind of funny that my first reaction was fairly negative. Didn't listen to the lyrics, didn't think a lot about it. It was just, how did that sound send to me? Was my foot tapping? Was I ready to dance? I think for me, the turning point in terms of significance of the lyrics was Blowin' in the Wind, because I started to hear that. The interesting thing was, it was when I was in high school, and I was in a creative writing class, so 16, 17, and somebody brought that in as a poem to talk about, and I said, I thought it was a song, but then we were dealing with it as a poem, and I just thought, wow, this is good, it's powerful, who is this guy? And that's when sort of my love affair with Dylan started.
So I got into, him as a junior in high school, and literally not a lot of the kids in high school were listening to him. Even I was a senior, and I thought, wow, this guy's, he's a poet. I loved his harmonica, and I loved kind of the clarity of what he said. It's real rapid, it's real fast, and you got to process. It's like a history lesson in 3 minutes.
I wish I could say that there was like some moment that's crystal clear in my memory of listening to music, but quite honestly, it was probably, listening to a radio station with my dad. It's just been something that's sort of been ingrained in my listening from before I can remember,
I think it was in late middle school, and I bought Bob Dylan's Greatest Hits, I think the first volume, and I just kind of like grew into the hits, and then through high school I started to listen to like the rest of the albums, and didn't really get into them until mid-high school.
I managed to hunt down a local musician at a concert off Langdon Street, who agreed to give me an interview about how Bob Dylan influenced him and his music.
In a strange dream it made.
I'm pretty much, my name is Miles Coyne, and I'm in a kind of folk indie band, Miles Coyne US Nickel Band.
Yeah.
And I also perform as Animals in the Entire Temple, as a bass player and stuff. And I feel more for the Rusty Nichols is kind of like how I'm influenced by Bob Dylan. And I feel like it's played a large part of performances that we've had like around the stage and stuff. We play out a lot. One thing I've always kind of admired about Bob Dylan is that he can really command a performance in a way where if he's liked or not liked, it's going to be different every time. And he kind of does exactly what, there's something inspirational in him just kind of going up there, not giving a fuck. Like, in all the footage I ever see of live recordings, it seems like he just kind of does whatever he wants. It's like a kind of, like, free-for-all. You don't know what he's going to do, and everyone's waiting to see what he's going to do, even if it's terrible. Well, aside from, like, just hearing it all the time and not really, like, just being a kid and just being like, that's a song. I mean, and I can't say I really remember, just, it's kind of a common thing. Like, Another Side of Bob was the first record I ever heard by him. And I remember listening, because I was just like, who's this guy? I'll listen to this, because everybody talks about this guy, because, it's a greatest hits kind of guy. About the time I'm starting to get known. And I was just like, this is the meanest person I've ever heard. It sounds like Ballad of Plain Dean, where he just rips apart and stuff. So this guy was a local record store, and I pretty much just sold really cheap records all the time. And I thought it would be a good way to, like, invest in music, because I can't afford $20 CDs and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
I just feel like that guy's a folk dude, and I've always kind of been like, as much as I try to, like, evolve my music and have a lot of instrumentation, I always remember that it came from being impressed by artists like Bob Dylan and Jeff Tweedy, just the kind of being able to hold your ground by yourself and really tell a story and communicate with people. There's something about, like, looking at someone in the eye and just doing it and stuff. It really is always just kind of blowing me away. So I just was drawn to that, and just kind of getting that impression, just immediately just like, this guy is about that. That's really fucking cool. And so I just kind of I was literally just that one, whatever. So it's just kind of like, whatever. And I knew the song It Ain't Me Babe, and that's the song I was like, wow.
I then decided to ask everyone about some of their favorite songs and albums.
Well, my favorite album is Highway 61 Revisited, Case Closed. It's one of my 2 or 3 favorite albums of any sort, so that one's easy.
Like a Rolling Stone, and I'd have to say, probably end to end, it is Highway 61. Because it just, that it's visceral for me.
If I was going to go with my favorite single, I think it would be Not Dark Yet, which I noticed that a couple of other people mentioned towards the beginning. It's one of their favorites. My favorite album, it might be Time Out of Mind, it might be John Wesley Harding or Nashville Skyline. I could go, ask me on a different day of the week, and it would be one or the other of those. And as for, and I've been pretty vocal about liking the Christmas album. And
Highway 61 is one of my top albums. I have a few favorite songs. Right now, Desolation Row. It's been a big one for the past few weeks. I like My Back Pages. We've spent a lot of time talking about them in class, so I've gotten to be able to really digest them and learn what they're more about, and so they're a lot more meaningful now after being in the Dylan class. And I'd say my third favorite song have to be Song to Woody.
I don't know. It's kind of I never really have a favorite one. I just enjoy Another Side the most, just because of how it's kind of that first impression of being blown away. I guess one of the ones I really like the most would be Highway 61, just because of its kind of kick-ass, and I have a guitar soloist, and he's going to be loud as fuck, and that's really cool.